Seven-game NBA slate on Monday. Before we get into it, though, let's recap everything from tonight. So tonight looking like it's to be a solid night for me. Nothing crazy. Did get hurt with a random massive blowout in the Pelicans-Blazers game. Had a lot of exposure to that game. CJ, Najee Marshall, Herb Jones, Anthony Simons. Just no fourth quarter minutes for any of those guys. So just massive blowout. I did really like Zach Collins. He came in at... not super high ownership. He picked up two quick ones to bail out the faders. Could have been a much bigger day for him. Devin Vassell with the team to himself. Nice game from him. Good job, buddy. And then rounded out with Josh Giddey. Have RJ Barrett going in the late game currently. I was high on Barrett and Randall as contrarian plays, who's both really struggled last game. Barrett's doing fine, and Randall is smashing. So, yeah, that's a recap there. It should be a good night for myself. 2x, maybe 3x. We'll see. I guess it depends on RJ Barrett if he really struggles for the rest of the game. Maybe I don't cash, but right now it's looking pretty good. There's not a lot of chalk in this in the late game. Okay, so let's quickly let's bring up the sponsor of the video, guys. That would be Prize Picks. Make sure to use the code DKDFS for a 100% match up to $100. It'll be linked down below. That's a free $100 to play with on the site. If you're not familiar, they have basically offer any sport you can think of, from basketball to football to soccer to esports to tennis to college sports. You build two to six player props and up to 25x your money. So again, give it a try if you are a first-time user. And yeah, if you're looking for more in-depth content, whether it be for DFS or Prize Picks, you can always check out my Patreon. That is linked down below. A lot of different packages for NFL or for NBA, XFL, and Prize Picks. All right, so talk about the 7-game slate, and the first game is a game we're going to have a lot of exposure to, and I'm not excited to talk about it, but it's the Pacers and it's the Pistons. It's a rematch of what we got a couple days ago. Well, basically the same guys are out again. No Halliburton, no Turner, no Mather, no McConnell. Buddy Hield's questionable. If I had to guess, I would say he just doesn't play. Like, it just sounds like they just want to sit their vets here. So I'd be pretty surprised if Buddy Hield plays. So I think you get the starting lineup of Nembhard, Duarte, Naismith, Nwora, Isaiah Jackson. That's my guess for the starting lineup. But yeah, either way, Nembhard's a great play either way. He played 33 minutes last game. He's going to do a majority of the ball handling. I really like him even at 5K. Naismith didn't play that much last game, only played 21 minutes. Same with Nwora, but again, Buddy Hield played a ton last game, so I don't think Buddy Hield will play, which I think should boost the minutes of Nwora and Naismith. You saw Jackson and Jalen Smith split the center position. You did not see Daniel Tice play at all. So if they do that again, then both Jackson and Jalen Smith are going to be really good values, because we know they're good fantasy point per minute guys. And yeah, they split the center position down the middle. So would like both those guys a good amount, as long as Daniel Tice is not getting entered in the rotation. And then Duarte, you got their short-term memory here, right? He was a really good play last night, and you just got really unlucky if you went to him. Awful shooting, got in massive foul trouble. You can't predict that, right? Duarte is a guy that, with this team, should get a lot of shots up, should be a relative high usage player, so I'm fine going right back to the well with him. I think he's a pretty good value. Beyond that, it gets a little bit dicey. I mean, George Hill will see rotation minutes, but I don't think it's necessary to go to him. You'll see some James Johnson. You'll see some O'Shea Brissett. They're both really, really cheap. Again, James Johnson's a vet. Brissett, yeah, I guess they're fine. I don't feel great about either of those guys. And then Buddy Hield's in. I think you just downgrade, his wings. And then Buddy Hield, if he does play, would be a solid tournament play. But again, still only played 27 minutes in that most recent game. All right, so moving on to Detroit, Killian Hayes. Okay, so we got no Ivy, no Bagley, no Bogdanovich, no Stewart, no Diallo, no Burks. So Killian Hayes is the standout here for me. Played 37 minutes last game. Absolutely smashed. I think he looks great. Wiseman, Duren, they should split the center position. You got 6K for Wiseman and 4.9K for Duren. Wiseman should play a little bit more, but Duren is a little bit cheaper. Livers should play a lot. He's not a great point per minute guy, but he's going to play a lot of minutes for this team. I think he's a fair play. Corey Joseph, I think, gets good run. I think he starts. I think the starting lineup will be Hayes, Joseph, Livers, Magruder, and Wiseman. That's my guess. Rodney Magruder, 35. I mean, he's been starting. He's been playing somewhere around 20 to 30 minutes a game. He's an okay punt play. Eugene Demorier should get some decent run here. He's played mid-20s minutes last few games. I think he's a reasonable value. Archie Hampton should play a little bit more. He's not been great, but he's really, really cheap. And then you might see a little bit of Buddy Boeheim or Rodin as the 9th and 10th guys, but I'm not really interested in either of them. Utah and Miami. So he saw just like the massive, massive game from THT last game. Going for 63 fancy ones, kind of out of nowhere. Price up, awful matchup. Might have Jordan Clarkson back. Not a lot standing out to me on the Utah side, especially if Clarkson plays. If Clarkson plays, I think it's a complete stay away. If he misses, maybe you can start considering like the main guys. But I still, in this matchup, it'll probably just be one that I'll avoid. So really not much interested in anyone in Utah. On the Miami side, you got Caleb Martin questionable. You got Lowry questionable. If they both play, I think it would mainly just be the top 3 guys that I'm interested in. If they're out, then we can look to possibly Gabe Vincent at 3.2K, where if he starts, he'd be a good value. You get more run for Oladipo, more run for Strus. There'd be reasonable options. I mean, Kevin Love is 4.1K. I think we probably see around 20 minutes from him. But, yeah, so that's the news we got to keep an eye on. Not major. Again, I don't think I'm going to go crazy in my exposure, but like if you get a 3.2K Gabe Vincent starting, then yeah, I have to have some interest there. Memphis and Dallas, I just want to say how incredibly happy I am for Desmond Bane. Played him like the last, 2-3 slates every time. Massive bust. Finally fade. Absolute smash for Bane. So happy for him. Yeah, Bane, Triple J. Like they're priced about right, but still have ceilings. Tyus Jones, 7.3. This is getting to the point where it's like, all right, he should be like a 7 to 8K player was what I said, a few days ago or a few slates ago. Now he's 7.3K. So I still think he's like a decent option, but no longer a must for me. Xavier Tillman's 5'9". If he stays out of foul trouble, probably plays around 30 minutes. Dylan Brooks is going to shoot a lot and probably play around 30 minutes. If he makes the shots, he can get you there. There's nothing I love on the bench. Aldama will see some backup big run at 4.2. You'll see some Roddy, some Conchar, some Kennard, but don't think I'm going to go there. On the Dallas side, really comes down to Kyrie, right? If Kyrie is in, then I like Kyrie a lot. If Kyrie's out, there's a lot of value here. Number one, Jaden Hardy would probably be the priority for me. Started last game, played 37 minutes. Josh Green, Tim Hardaway Jr., these guys will get a usage bump. You saw a really big game from Josh Green last game. Tim Hardaway Jr. Had a solid game as well. Christian Wood, even with all those guys out, even with Luka and Kyrie out, still only played 15 minutes. So he's just a guy that, like, unless he starts, it's really hard to feel confident with his minutes. He's a good point per minute guy. So if you told me Wood played like 28 minutes tomorrow, I would play him. But like, I have a really hard time right now. The minutes are just like Jason Kidd just doesn't want to play him. Reggie Bullock, he'll play a lot of minutes, probably won't do a lot with those minutes. Maxi Kleber's 3.5. I think he's probably going to play mid-20s minutes as a fair play. And then, yeah, if Kyrie's in, then, again, Kyrie himself looks good. Just would downgrade the value. Hardy would move to the bench. Hardaway, Green, Wood would all look worse. So that is big news for Dallas. Minnesota and Atlanta. Gobert news is pretty important as well. He's questionable. If he does not play, you should get Naz Reid in the starting lineup. As long as he stays out of foul trouble, he probably plays 30-plus minutes and would be the best value on the slate. As far as the backup big goes, you can mess like Knight or Gar. I never know whenever Gobert misses, it's just like complete guessing game for who the backup's going to be to Naz Reid. So I probably won't deal with that. If you want to try to guess, then go for it. As far as the other guys go, though, Anthony Edwards is 9.2. Finally had a 50 fantasy point game last game. I like his ceiling. He's going to play a lot of minutes, and I think the matchup's pretty good for him. Slow-Mo, Conley, and McDaniels, I think are all pretty safe plays. The minutes have ticked up in these guys. You saw pretty big minutes for Slow-Mo last game. Mike Conley, I think, plays around low 30s in a competitive game. And Jaden McDaniels probably sees, low 30s as well. So all three of those, I think, are fully fine options. My boy, NAW, been consistently seeing around 20 minutes off the bench. Reasonable value, as is Torian Prince at 3.6K. They're fine salary relief plays. On the Atlanta side, so basically fully healthy. Bogdanovich is questionable. So we'll keep an eye on that news. Trae Young, Murray both have a ceiling, but at these price points, that feels priced about right. We saw a big game from Trae last game and a quiet game from DeJounte, but you see those takeover DeJounte games too. So both are more tournament plays for me. Capella, Okongwu, they're going to split the center position. Also, both tournament plays. Like some games will get Capella seeing extended minutes. Some games Okongwu will push for mid-20s minutes, but neither of those guys are priorities for me. DeAndre Hunter should play a lot, is always like a relatively safe play. Sadiq Bey, John Collins, Bogdanovich, like these are guys that are fine filler plays, but minutes can fluctuate at times. So yeah, like if you continue to get John Collins to play like 30-ish minutes, he does feel too cheap. So let's move on to Boston and Houston. Really like the matchup here for Boston. The question is, can Houston keep this game competitive? I don't know if they can. But I'll just say Tatum, Brown, if you think Houston can keep it competitive, one of those guys probably is a really big game. White, Brogdon, Smart are all fair options in the mid-range. I think if the game's is competitive, at least one of those guys will have a really, really good game. And then Al Horford's 5'6". In a competitive game, you probably see around 30 minutes from him. He's a fully fine option. I don't think I'd mess with like anyone else with like Grant Williams. Like the backup big rotation right now is kind of just murky. Some games, a lot of minutes for Grant Williams. Some games, it's Hauser. Some games, it's Muscala. Sometimes it's Blake Griffin. I just like, I'm not going to go there. For Houston, not necessarily the best matchup, but Şengün, KPJ, Jalen Green are all fine tournament options. Şengün is probable, so I fully expect him to play. Kevin Porter Jr. probably sees, I don't know, low 30s minutes. Jalen Green has been seeing pretty solid minutes, but also relatively scoring dependent when KPJ is on the court. Jabari Smith been playing really well last couple of games. I don't know if that can continue, but if you think it does, you can totally go to him. Tari Eason, KJ Martin, just secondary plays. Golden State and Phoenix. On the Phoenix side, so no Kevin Durant. I like the big three here for Phoenix with Booker, Paul, Ayton. I expect all three to play pretty big minutes. 38 minutes last game for Booker. Chris Paul played 39 minutes. And DeAndre Ayton played 37. Now, I don't know if we get that much run from all of them, but if you get close to that against the Golden State Warriors, like all three, I think are pretty good plays here. And Okoji's minutes went way up last game too, played 35 minutes. If you get 35 minutes again from a 4.9K shooting guard small forward Okoji, I think he's a pretty safe play. Ross, Craig should kind of split run at the 4. 23 minutes last game for Ross. Torrey Craig played 28 minutes. Campaign, he'll play the backup point guard position. If you think Chris Paul sees somewhat limited minutes, you can go to him. But again, Payne only played 7 minutes last game. Golden State, so you got Wiggins out, Draymond probable, and Kuminga is questionable. Nothing really standing out for me on Golden State. I mean, I like the ceiling on Steph Curry always. Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole. If they get hot behind the three-point line, then yes, they can have good games, but don't love the price points in either. Draymond's always like a relatively safe play. He should play low 30s minutes and can stuff a stat sheet. Even Shenzo, if you played him a couple games ago, you're probably super, super happy about this last game. That's Milwaukee going for 47 fancy points, but I think we probably see low 30s minutes from him on average. If Kuminga's out, you should get a little bit more run for Looney, who had a big game last game, but that was definitely an outlier performance. Final game, Milwaukee, Sacramento. So Milwaukee, the big news is Giannis. If Giannis is in, probably just Giannis out of Anderson. If Giannis is out, then we can start making the argument for Drew and Middleton and Lopez and Portis. The issue is their price points are way up. Like 8-9 for Drew. Like without Giannis, that's probably right. 8-2 for Middleton is probably right without Giannis. Lopez has blocked like 27 shots the last 2 games. That won't continue. My boy Bobby Portis has played really well, but he's now up to 7-1. So even if Giannis is out, I don't know if there'd be a priority here. I know the matchup is really, really good, but again, the price points are up on these guys. And then you can start making the arguments for guys like Allen and Ingles and Crowder and Connaughton if there's no Giannis. But again, if Giannis is in, it's really just Giannis, assuming no limitations, and that is it. Finally, Sacramento. Sabonis and Fox are good tournament plays. Both were kind of quiet last game in a tough matchup against Phoenix, but they're going to play big minutes. This is where the offense runs through. Herter, Barnes, Murray are all secondary plays. As you know, one of these guys usually gets benched. It was Murray last game because he played really bad, and Malik Monk played well off the bench. They extended him, and that's just like kind of how this team works. Monk, always a good tournament play, but his price point's up a little bit. Trey Lyles, if Giannis plays, could see extended run just because he's a guy that can defend Giannis. He's been playing around 20 minutes a game and it's been pretty consistent, so I don't mind going to him for value, but I don't think there's anyone else. I mean, unless you think like Sabonis gets in foul trouble, you could take a dart like Met too, but I probably won't be going that route. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it for the video. Again, if you have been enjoying, just make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Really appreciate all the support, and we'll see you guys in the next one.